to live with family and friends, get old, lazy, and fat.
Hello and welcome to Lost in Sci-Fi and Fantasy. I'm your host Leo, and today we are talking about Ghost of Tsushima. Now, I was actually kind of beside myself for a little bit here on whether or not I should do Ghost of Tsushima, because one, I already did an episode on Ghost of Tsushima on RPG Hangout, but at the same time, at that time I hadn't finished the game. I also took a really long break from this podcast, and in the meantime I platinumed Ghost of Tsushima, so I kind of need to make that worth something. So let's do an episode on Ghost of Tsushima on here. It is I played it on PS5 because I got the director's version, and I was like, you know what, I'll play it. And I also was using RPG Hangout to justify the purchase of it. So, you know, I'm always about killing as many birds with as few stones as possible, I guess. In this case, it's that in the massive break that I took for no real reason, ended up platinuming fucking Ghost of Tsushima, so I need an excuse to talk about it. Or I need to justify the time I spent playing it. Most of the time, when it wasn't major story missions, I played it listening to podcasts, because, you know, doing side quests and whatnot, you're not really listening to anything. You're not doing anything. You're just wandering around a massive open world, which can get a little bit tedious sometimes, especially when like certain breakpoints kind of are really hard to cross. It's annoying. Anyway, moving on. So the story of Ghost of Tsushima is an interesting one. So it is set around the time of, I think, the first Mongol invasion of Japan. The game opens up with a massive samurai charge on the beach of Komoda Beach. And you are playing as Jin Sakai, son of Lord Sakai and nephew to Lord Shimura. And you go through the charge, and it's a bloodbath. Everyone's getting slaughtered. You almost die. Your horse does die. And you survive. You're pulled off the beach by Yuna, who you find out is a thief, and she gets some flack for it, but she ends up teaching you some thief maneuvers, because, you know, you can't just charge out there and kill everyone in this state, because you'll die, as shown on the beach. So she saves him. They kind of weasel their way through a town, and then you're kind of let out into the open world to do missions. Your first mission is to meet her elsewhere. She eventually agrees to help you on your mission to free your uncle, who you discover is being held at Castle Canada, I think. So you have to work your way to the castle. So you work your way to the castle. She assists you. You fail hard, get dropped off of a bridge. You survive that, and then you continue. You find Yuna. She agrees to help you again with your suicide mission, as long as you help her get her brother from this town. He's like a good blacksmith, and the proper way to get in, you're going to need a grapple hook, and he can fashion a grapple hook. So you go save him. He helps fashion the grapple hook. You do a couple of side missions helping Lady Moscow. She is the last of her family. When you find her, her family has been slaughtered. Every last one of them. Her kids, her grandkids, her brother, her sister, everyone. And her sons and husbands died on the beach. And you help her bury her family, and then start one of the 4 or 5 major side quests, which is helping her solve the mystery of who plotted to murder her family during the invasion. The other one, I'm just going to have to call him archery teacher, because I can't remember his name right now. His plot is one of his former students has sided with the Mongols, and you have to help him track her down. And the entire time you're learning about her past, his past, and whatnot along the way. So those are the two side quests that bleed into each prefecture, each act, while others are kind of relegated to just one area. But you do those to get them on side to help you storm the castle. You help them, I guess, a certain amount down their thing before they're actually like, yeah, I'll be there. Then that's kind of the bare minimum you have to do. Then you can just kind of move on and do that. You take the castle, save your uncle, and you take the castle, you save your uncle, and then you move on into Act 2, which is a swampy area. It's kind of my least favorite area of the game, but it also has some of the better side quests. It's where the main Yuna side quests open up. It's where you get the, I think, Nobu side quests. And then you, of course, continue the wrecked house and former student side quests as well. So you work your way through this area. This area's story is kind of minor. There's only like 3 or so things that you have to do. You have to meet up with Lord Shimura to pretty much clear out a base. Then you have to reclaim your armor, and then you have to get a township that had rebelled against Lord Shimura in the past to join you. You do this, and then you take on Castle Shimura. One of the quests, though, is to reclaim your armor. And in doing so, Jin asks his former housekeeper, who works with medicines and whatnot, to make him a poison enough to kill a person. She's, not super for it, but goes along with it anyway. Then there's also a side quest involving her that ends very sadly because she dies at the end. It's really sad. But anywho, when the attack comes to take Castle Shimura, things don't go super great. See, when you first saved your uncle, he kind of chastises you for using thief techniques. The fact, because he'd been told what Jin was doing because he's becoming a bit of a legend, going by the Ghost. But he's not happy about the fact that he's sneaking around killing all these people. He'd rather fight with honor, stand and face every enemy that he takes on. And you do, for the most part. At least you can. You can sneak around or you can just charge in. Depends on the bonus objectives, really. But anyway, you go and commit some acts that your uncle is not exactly a fan of. See, Jin utilizes the poisons some people to get their attention, and then jumps them and decapitates the general or leader there, which his uncle is not a fan of. It's like, you're using scare tactics. We don't use scare tactics. That's not cool. So he's like, you pretty much say, yeah, sorry, and whatnot, and continue the attack. And the charge on the bridge is a massive failure, killing a ton of people. And Jin says, we could have prevented this. We could have, if we had held back and thought of a plan or something, we could have prevented that. And his uncle's like, yeah, but no, we're gonna rebuild the bridge and do it again. And Jin's like, no, I'm gonna sneak into the camp and poison them. And his uncle's like, don't. And Jin's like, I'm gonna do it anyway, and leaves. And that's what you do next. You sneak into Castle Shimura and you poison everyone. And you find that the main bad guy, I can't remember his name, but he left, and your friend who betrayed you, who was one of the requirements for the first chapter, he's kind of a minor part of it, because you kill him at the end of chapter 2, and you move on with your life. You get exiled for having used poison. Your uncle tries to salvage it because he's trying to adopt you. He tries to salvage it, and he's like, we can blame it on Yuna. She'll be killed. It's whatever. But you'll be fine. We can blame it on her. And you say, no, I'm the ghost. And then you leave. Well, actually, you're arrested. And then you have to escape at the beginning of the next chapter. And yeah, so then you become an exile. You're not able to fast travel for all of a mission or two. And then you find out that the poison that you made has somehow been figured out by the Mongols. It's not explained how they found out or anything. It just happens for some reason. So yeah, so that happens, and now you have to deal with all of the archers in the third area have poison arrows. It's annoying, but you kind of are able to shake it off. You just pat yourself and heal with your resolve, and you're fine. But yeah, so the third arc, or third act, the third act involves you meeting up with some hunters, quote unquote, to assist in clearing a stronghold that is a passage to the Act 2 area, so that you can get your friends in there with you to stage the final battle. You stage that final battle. You find out that the leader of the hunters used to have a thing with Yuna, and still kind of wants to have a thing with Yuna from the sounds of it. But the way you get him on side is by letting them stay there in the meantime throughout winter, because they're hunters and whatnot, and it's cold. So you're like, hey, you can stay here for the winter. The guy's not using it. As long as you're out by spring, it'll be fine. But he also finds out that they're bandits. So he makes it clear that he doesn't want them, troubling people. And that's the last you hear of them. There's literally nothing else that happens with them. So I guess we assume that everything's fine, because they pretty much just stay there. They don't participate in the final battle or anything. They just kind of hang out there. They're just there. You have to assist in getting stuff prepared. Yuna's brother dies, because Yuna's getting ready to leave and whatnot, but then he dies in Act 2, actually, now that I think about it. He dies in Act 2, and it's not great. So she stays on, and she helps you plan out the stuff. You scout out the bay area that the Khan's staying at. You kind of prepare your final things, and then you push through and kill the Khan. It's a nice big epic battle with a ton of set pieces and whatnot. It's pretty cool. You fight the Khan. If you fully leveled up, it's not too hard. And then after that, there is a mission beforehand where you have to sneak into Castle Shimura and deliver your uncle a message letting him know that you are going to attack during the storm and whatnot, to just pretty much slyly let him know, hey, if you just so happen to attack too, that would be kind of cool. And there's this whole thing of oh, you snuck in and left before he noticed, kind of thing. It's cute. He does show up during the final battle, not when he, at the beginning of the battle, but a bit of the way through. And afterwards, after you've defeated the Khan, your uncle leaves a message for you saying to meet you back at your family home to have a discussion. So you meet him there. It's nice and dramatic and whatnot. And he pretty much says, I have to kill you. The Shogun needs someone, and you are that someone to blame. And the price of my punishment is having to kill you. Your punishment is death, but my punishment is having to kill you. Because he as an uncle, he does genuinely care for his nephew. And at the beginning of the game, you kind of feel oh, maybe something's a bit shifty. Maybe he will end up teaming up with the Khan and whatnot. Maybe he'll betray you in the end. And he kind of does. But not in the way that you expect, It's more of a betrayal through disappointment kind of thing. But you then duel him as the final duel. And you're kind of given a choice at the end of the game to either kill him or spare him. If you kill him, you're pretty much, following your uncle's final wish. He asks you directly to kill him after you defeat him in battle. And the ending doesn't really change depending on who you kill or how. So it doesn't really matter. It just changes the color your armor gets dyed, and it changes... what does it change? The house you get. But from what I can tell, both houses are fucking disheveled, and the armors are either red or white. But I felt, since Jin cares for his uncle, he would, give his uncle what he wished. His final thing, a bit of honor in the form of death. Yeah, But yeah, so that's how I did it. The story is not bad. It goes on a bit long, but if you're just beelining the critical path, it probably won't take you that long at all. It's only like 24 missions long, so it won't take you anything to really do that. It's just sitting through some of the cutscenes that can be a bit long at times. As for the major side quests, of course the two side quests that are with you from the beginning are full of twists and turns and kind of fanning about for a bit. In Lady Masako's storyline, you are following her as she pretty much determines who tried to kill her family, or technically did kill her family. And it's obvious it's not Mongols, it's someone who is like a rival samurai clan. And each person that you follow to their kind of thing is someone that her family wronged in some way. One person is someone who worked for them but had to be let go. She let them go, and he joined the plot because he ended up destitute or whatnot. Even though he seemed like he was doing fine, like he was let go because he was like abusing his wife, and his wife ended up going back to him. The Mongols attack him at his little fishing hut. He kills his wife and daughter and Scarpers, and is then killed by Lady Masako. But the theme between most of them is that her family let them go. She felt that she was helping them because a lot of the other choices were, them being arrested or killed or whatnot, because they technically had wronged the family, and her husband was seemingly not a very forgiving guy. So she decided to let them go, but they, found some hardship and didn't see, it as, I guess, wrong. So they decided to join a plot against her. The penultimate one is actually her secret lover, who they had taken in. And she, I guess, had been stealing things and was going to get flogged for it. So she had to let her go. But she's the only one of the conspirators that doesn't get killed. You don't know at all what happens to her down the line or anything, but as far as I can tell, she's the only one that doesn't get absolutely murdered. But yeah, so it's found out that the person who was plotted against her was none other than her own sister, who faked her death in her house somehow. She killed a person, put them in her clothes, and messed up her face so that she could fake her death. Then she plotted against them when she found out that Lady Masako had survived the plot. She had to escape and fake her death. But yeah, and then she tries to cover her track. So what she was trying to do was, one, get revenge on her sister, and two, kind of form her own kind of clan. So she wanted revenge on her sister because her sister, well, again, she thought she was helping, ended up putting her in a very terrible situation. So her sister was being looked, she was older, and she was to kind of marry a samurai because she was the oldest, and that was kind of what was expected. But Lady Masako had taken up the sword and helped defend her family alongside a samurai who came in and had eyes for her. So they ended up getting married. And her sister, Hana, saw this as like a betrayal because, she skipped the line and whatnot. But to try to, keep things cordial, Lady Masako set her up with like this, I think, wealthy trader and whatnot to try to give her some kind of status and sent her up north. And she is miserable because for some reason in the game the north is depicted as like perpetually frozen. I was taking it as like each section is like a season, like the end of summer or to like early fall. Then the second area is like deep fall, and then the last area is winter. Because the timeline of the game is not strictly told. You don't know exactly how long things are taking in between. Excuse me. But you don't know how long things are taking in between set pieces. So it could be months. And so it's a big question of like that. And then there's also the fact that if you look at where Tsushima is, it wouldn't be that snowy. Like, it might get some snow, but it probably wouldn't get that much snow to the point where like you're freezing to death going up one of the mountains. But that's just, one of the side quests. But anyway, she was sent up north and was having an absolute shit time of it because not only was the north not great in temperature, weather, her husband was an alcoholic abusive who was just shit all around. So she decided to seek revenge and carried out the plot. So there's that. And then in, I guess, Misako's act of mercy, ? Instead of killing her, she gives her a knife to kill herself. And then that was that. That was that plot. The layout of the side quests for her plot is an interesting one because you're given the first few, and then it's supposed to kind of like jump to Act 2. But one of them you only actually find by stumbling across it. Like, you literally have to like stumble across it. It's the recovery mission in Act 1. It's a mission in which you help her comb Komada Beach to try to find her sons. She was able to find her husband and confirm his death, but she had yet to find her sons. So you help her comb the beach, you find the sons, they've been strung up, you find a nearby lighthouse where she wants to bury them. It's occupied by Mongols, you kill them, and then help her put her sons to rest. That's about that. There is a bit where, as you're going through her story, she's getting more and more consumed by the idea of revenge. You try to be calm, of course, but technically the whole point of your storyline is that you are also consumed by revenge. But you follow her, and a bunch of people are trying to tell her, like, you're going too far. In fact, there's a monk who technically was part of the conspiracy. He wasn't on the list, but he was given a letter, and he knows who had who did it. So, who had approached him for information, and so she tries to kill him, but all she had to do was ask him for information. So you end up fighting her, beating her, then you and her together fight off some Mongols, and then, or some conspirators, or whoever. Then you hunt down the monk, and he tells, who it was. So she's able to kind of calm her revenge boner for a bit. But yeah, so her story is probably one of the better ones. It gets a little bit tedious, like trying to remember her plot line, especially since I did set down the game for a good chunk of time. But overall, her side story is great. The archery teachers, though, his gets a little bit annoying, in part because the voice doesn't fully match the character. He sounds a lot younger than the character is. But that aside, you come across him also having been attacked, and you just kind of follow him as he teaches you archery and whatnot. It begins as him taking you on as a student, but then as you're going through learning things, you discover, wait a second, like these archers are using like Japanese techniques and Japanese bows and Japanese arrows and whatnot. And then you find out, oh, his student's helping them and whatnot. So then the rest of his mission becomes hunting her down. And you find out along the way that he took her in. She was a bit scruffy and whatnot. Turns out she was a thief. Turns out she was a notorious thief. He was going to adopt her. She was taking to the lessons well, but she was mostly using them for violence and whatnot, and he didn't want that kind of thing. But she, like, you end up meeting her near the end of Act 2, and she's fine. She warns you that he's going to probably turn against you, because he supposedly had the Luke in the Last Jedi moment twice. So there's a famous archer, like he was part of a samurai clan and whatnot, and he had taught supposedly this famous guy who he ended up having to kill because he went a bit mad with power. And the idiot told this to her, just to let her know, like, hey, I did this thing. And she doesn't take it well. So then he turns around and is trying to kill her. So she becomes like super paranoid that like he's going to try to kill her, because he ends up thinking that. In Act 3, you end up coming across her and helping her, check her traps and everything. Turns out the Mongols have betrayed her and kicked her to the curb. She was only doing it because she had to. It was her only way of surviving, was providing a skill. Otherwise, terrible things probably would have befell her. But she wants to get revenge. She wants to take them down. So she asks Jin and the archery teacher to help her. And they do. Of course, the archery teacher's, on edge the entire time, thinking that she's going to betray them. And every little bump that they come across is a potential betrayal kind of thing. But in the end, we help her take out the rest of the archers, and she kind of goes missing. Turns out she went to the dock because she had paid for a ship. And you meet her there. Or, well, you don't really meet her. You catch her as the boat's leaving. Like she's on the boat and it's out there. The teacher is getting ready to shoot her. And you stop him and like point to the broken mask, because she had like this really cool like fox mask and whatnot. He points to the broken mask, broken bow, and a letter. And she's pretty much states that, she's going to put the way of the bow behind her. She's going to try to go for a fresh life on the mainland. And while she could have been his daughter, it's probably best that she isn't. Which kind of ends up sort of mirroring Jin's story and whatnot, in that, his uncle wanted to adopt him, but in the end couldn't because they have different values, and also the shogun wants his nephew dead now. You know, the way it is. But but that's that one. That one's okay. There's a constant, like, tension the entire time of, will he actually betray us? Because it's, like, trying to heavily flag that he probably will. And the fact that, you know, if you play through all of Lady Masako's story first, you know, she does kind of betray you. So I was like, oh, you know, there's going to be a pattern. You know, you fight both of them at some point. Like, her first, then him, kind of thing. But no, you don't fight him. He just kind of goes benignly along with your plan and complains the entire time. But that's about it. So it's overall not too bad. Then there's the shorter ones. Nobu's story is you come across him having, like, been kidnapped by Mongols, and you save him and whatnot, and help him, like, try to save the monks and whatnot. You try to save his friend. His friend ends up is like a massive pacifist, which, I mean, he's a monk, so it makes sense. While Nobu's a warrior monk who is constantly talking about his brother, who, while they were imprisoned together, likely died and whatnot. So he was able to escape, but, you know, his brother wasn't. This friend ends up sacrificing himself to save Nobu, but he ends up dying while trying to save this small little town. And then you help him save a temple, get its things back. Then you save the temple. Then you help get the stuff back. Then you help defend the temple again. Then you end up helping him track down the guy who kind of has been targeting them. And it turns out that guy actually had held his brother captive, had amputated both of his arms and legs, and he was the one providing the information to the Mongols, because he was being tortured the entire time. Nobu mercifully puts his brother out of his misery, and then goes on a revenge rampage. And then afterwards, he just kind of chill. Like, he kills the guy that did it, and then he just is there. Like, he's like, I'm not going to be a monk anymore. But then Jin talks him into staying as a monk, even though a lot of the monks saw him do it. Like, he went to town. He pretty much burned that place to the ground and just slaughtered everyone in his wake. Like, it was messed up. And, like, he set the guy ablaze while still alive and watched him burn to death. So, a bit hardcore. But he, you take back the temples and whatnot. And, he decides to, become the head of the Cedar Temple, I guess. At least Jin encourages him to, which is a bit odd, but, friends are willing to look past some things, I guess. But yeah, that's Nobu's. Then there's a really short one with Yuna, in which you learn that she and her brother were likely sexually assaulted, sold into slavery, escaped from slavery, and now we're seeking revenge against the slavers who are helping the Mongols. And you do go through and, slaughter them. And those ones are for pure scare tactics. Like, you have to go through those missions, kill the people, take their heads, and then place them outside without getting noticed by guards and whatnot. It's an interesting mission. But you do that, you learn her backstory, and then you kind of learn why this lady was kind of mad with Yuna, because she was also in this in the slavers' camp with them. They were all going to escape together, but she kind of got left behind and was thus mad at them. There's also a weird moment where, like, the guy, the like leader guy, comes back and like stabs her, I guess. At least that's what's implied. It's implied that, you know, we're gonna, you know, avenge her. After you kill the leader guy, she like hobbles up and is like, okay, cool, and then leaves. It's really weird. And then the final small side quest thing is with your caretaker. She is taking you around looking at the graveyards. She wants to tend the graveyards. She helps you form a poison that causes confusion, and pretty much is like a berserk one. So it makes them attack each other instead of you. But she helps you craft that, and then she wants you to go around with her checking the graveyards. And it culminates in the kind of revelation that his dad almost certainly had an affair with her, or at least sought her comfort when his mother died. And, you know, that kind of revelation, she's kind of, you know, losing it, as, you know, she's at quite an advanced age, especially for the time period. And she's kind of slipping in and out of, you know, present and past, because she keeps confusing Jin for his father. And she, you know, has you describe what you see, and then she kind of passes away. And you bury her. It's a very short, sweet, and sad story, but, you know, it's nice. Anyway, so that's kind of the overall arcing plots of the story. There is also, you do some stuff with Kenji, and it's just his plans keep failing and whatnot. But it doesn't really amount to anything. But anyway, it's a really good game. It can drag on a bit. It feels like it's at least 3 different samurai movie packed into one. Which, I guess, it's a video game, but it's hard to focus on one plot when in the back of your mind are at least 2 other plots going on at the same time. Like, even like in Act 1, when you finish it, you're reminded by the archer teacher and Lady Masako that, hey, guess what? There's more missions to do ahead. And they slightly chastise you for like not really completing their side quests. Kind of. I don't know what happens if you complete Castle Kaneda having finished all of their side quests in Act 1. I don't know if they kind of slightly say the same line, but it feels like they slightly chastise you for not really having finished it. So, you know, yeah. But yeah, I do highly recommend it. It's a bit late to recommend it because, I mean, it's ages now. But it is a really good game. It's beautiful. It's very fun. There's some gripes I have, like the bird. If you're wandering around, a golden bird will appear and kind of guide you to a thing, be it an onsen or a fox den or, you know, a bamboo thing. It leads you to like collectibles. It goes in, like, I guess you could say a bird's eye view or a beeline. It goes directly. And sometimes it leads you nowhere. Like, there's been at least 10 times where I follow the stupid bird, it lands on a porch, and then fucks off. Like, It's annoying, but there's also been many times where you're following it at full clip and whatnot, and then you just go off of a cliff because it led you over a cliff. It's not great. Then there's also, because the whole thing is kind of like minimal UI, the way that you kind of GPS your way around is through wind. Like, you set a marker, and I think it's the winds of destiny will point you in the right direction. And you'll be constantly swiping up on the middle pad because you need to keep the winds going, because sometimes they shift. If you like slightly overshoot it, the winds will shift and like it'll circle around. It's a bit annoying. Then there's something that I didn't notice until I was like halfway through the game, and it's that key characters, like if the winds are pointing you towards a character or like sometimes a specific thing, it'll just have like leaves twirling around them in a little tornado. It's cute but weird, slightly immersion breaking for a game that's going for such immersion. I kid. But you know, it's fun. The emotional death of your horse is kind of undercut, I guess you could say. So at the beginning of Act 3, your horse gets shot by arrows from the samurai, and you push your horse through the night and whatnot. It survives, but it eventually dies. And of course, when you first get the horse, you name it. I named mine Sora, because Kingdom Hearts. And, you know, it was a nice, sturdy horse the entire time. It was nice. And it was kind of sad when the horse died. But then, like, 10 minutes later, you're given unnamed horse. And when you summon it, you just say, horse. And then there's a later mission in which Yuna's like, well, it's about time you got a proper horse. So pick from these. And it's very awkward because, like, I went to select a horse, and the game prompted me, was like, are you sure you want white horse when there's the deluxe edition horse? And I was like, I have the deluxe edition? I guess. Okay. So I canceled out and like went over. I was like, how do I tell which one's the fucking deluxe edition horse? And I look at the horse and it has like a little sparkly symbol above it. I'm like, that's the deluxe edition horse. And I select the horse. And I seriously do not know what the difference between the horses was, except for maybe it had different name. I don't know. It was very confusing, the deluxe edition horse. But that horse I named Kaze for wind, because I couldn't name it anything else. Well, I could have, but none of them were quite as good as Kaze. I picked that horse instead of the white one, and so I'm like, okay, cool, now I have a new horse. Kind of, you know, scrubs Sora, you know, the horse that I had for 2 acts of the game, and kind of spits in his face, but whatever. It's funnily enough, so in Act 2 you're given access to the DLC island, Iki Island, and you can do it then, because technically you're high enough level, but I didn't get around to it until the end of the game. But you're kind of supposed to do it at the end of the game because Jin mentions that the Khan is dead, and that, you know, the Mongol invasion's, you know, pointless now. But at the beginning of that, there's like this emotional thing where like Kaze is like drowning and whatnot, and you land on the island without him. And there's the first mission you do is a mission to like find your horse. You have to find your horse, get your horse back, and whatnot. And you're like tracking down your horse. It's interesting, but technically you could do it before then, and there might be different dialogue. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure. I didn't finish Iki Island, full disclosure. So like I platinumed the game, but I didn't finish Iki Island because it was doing the thing I don't like. It's like it felt like it was like the least favorite part of like a lot of games from the like mid 2010s, where like every game was doing the Far Cry thing, where like you have to go through a drugged section. You know, Far Cry 3, Far Cry 4 did it. You know, the missions where you have to be drugged, and they were like, shit, we didn't put this in the main game. Let's just make the whole DLC that. So the entire time you're drugged, and I just had the feeling that the entire time you would be walking in hallucinations and whatnot, and I was like, I don't want to deal with this for a whole DLC. It might not be that long, but I'm good. I'm good. Plus there's like a new mini game that you have to like tilt the controller and whatnot to like keep the flute in pitch as you play the flute, which is a little bit annoying. I was like, I don't want to deal with that. I had just mainlined the game for the past like 40 hours. I'm good. I got the platinum. I'm happy. So that's kind of my thing. I'm done with it. It's good. Will I go back to it? Probably not. I think there is, like, on one of the, like, update things for, like, the director's cut or whatnot, I think there is, like, a speedrun trophy or something like that. I might go back for. I might see what happens if you do, like, none of the side quests. Who knows? But, yeah, I think I'm good on Ghost of Tsushima for now. I have a lot more games to play, like Death Stranding, especially now that Death Stranding 2 is coming out. The Witcher 3, since that new update came out. I downloaded fucking Cyberpunk 2077 to see if that's still a complete and utter mess. Who knows? All things that I'm going to dip into to see what's happening. But yeah, like, it's a good game. I definitely highly recommend it. It's kind of quintessential, like, PlayStation now. And also, it's getting a TV series. It's either getting a TV series or a movie. And I think it would heavily benefit from that, because it is really good. It's so good that the American developers of the game, I believe, have been given honorary citizenship on the island of Tsushima. So, like, the island of Tsushima was like, hell yeah, this game's fucking fantastic, awesome. Like, almost no one talks about us. So nice. Hey, again, it's a beautiful game. It's very fun. It's a game that's fairly easy to get stuck into. The combat's, like, nice. It has a nice whole. It revolves around a parry mechanic, which is really cool. You learn different techniques as it goes through. The game starts off extremely picky, I guess you could say, about what stance you're in when fighting specific enemies. Like, it goes from not too picky because you only have one stance. But as you unlock stances, the game kind of gets a bit more picky. But once you have them all unlocked, it just kind of, like, throws its hands up in the air and says, "Fuck it, kill them with whatever you have. Just stab the people." Anyway, let's go ahead and move on to wrapping it up. That's it for this episode. Thank you guys so much for listening. Next week will be Blade of the Immortal. We're doing, like, a little samurai duology. I'll probably end up doing a lot more samurai movies down the line because I have a lot to watch, like the original 47 Ronin, the 7 Samurai. All of these things are available for me to watch that I want to watch. But I'll probably do more samurai stuff, like, in the future. But right now, next episode is Blade of the Immortal, and then we'll see where I'll be going from there. Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. I will talk to you guys later. Goodbye.